Hello there, my name is Jordan Leroy Hansen, also known as LeDev, and as many people who played the game of Hearthstone probably knows, a new expansion has just been announced. It's called Rise of Shadows. It's coming on April 9th, and it's going to be, the basic premise is a bunch of Hearthstone villains from the past and also the current present are forming an evil team to try to take the city of Daron. We got a couple of cards revealed from the expansion trailer and such, so I thought I would give you my first 2 cents on the cards. I don't want to say they're reviewed just yet. I'm still working on the review for this, and maybe we'll get that out sometime next week and such. But overall, I just wanted to provide just my first 2 cents of the cards, just to get back into generating Hearthstone content, since I wanted to get back to it. Also, one thing, I am also going to try to make a little other video besides this spoiler season stuff. I kind of wanted to make deck templates for essentially decks that people can consider trying out once the year the dragon rotates, since a lot of cards are rotating out of standard. So I kind of wanted to make a video of showing off templates that people can try out, or just fun decks that they can try out that would be year the dragon safely rotation, so to speak. But that aside, that's just quick news. Let's actually get on to the actual cards that got revealed. So the first one is Archvillain Rafam, a 7 mana 7/8 taunt, that's a big body, which has the battle cry, replace your hand and deck with legendary minions. So it's safe to say that the head honcho has a pretty good card. So it's a Warlock legendary, which I think many people were hoping that this was going to be like a neutral legendary, since the original Archvillain Rafam was a neutral. Nevertheless, though, this is a really good card for Warlock. One of the popular archetypes in Zoo is Warlock, as many people note, and this is kind of a card that's actually a very decent top-in. Because since most Warlocks like to keep low to the ground with their mana costs, just getting out cheap minions and such, build up the board presence and all that, this card in itself can help you if it gets prolonged into the game. Sorry, brain fart. Been a long day. Anyway, so it helps essentially if the game durdles on. So the fact that you can actually restock what could be less effective minions in the late game to hopefully random legendary minions that could be more effective late game is really cool. Now, keep in mind, there is the cost of variance, and I do think variance is going to affect this card a lot, because yes, there are some really good legendaries, but there's also some very, very bad legendaries. So you kind of have to keep that in the back of your brain. This might see possibility in Control Warlock, because just that ability to rechange your hand to cards that might be more effective to the current circumstances is powerful. However, the fact that it also replaces your deck, I think, might ward Control Warlock players off the card. Because most controlled Warlock players have a game plan, and they want to execute on that game plan. And the problem is, once you play Archvillain Rafam, you're kind of giving yourself to the victim of variance, unless your finisher is within your hand, and even that's not the case. Or maybe the finisher's in your deck. Oh no, wait, that's not the case either, because it's going to be replaced with a random legendary minion. So, yeah. Great Zoo card. Maybe we'll see play in Control Warlock. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see. Next up, though, is a card that I'm kind of very grateful that they printed, especially since Malygos is still in Standard. We thought many people were predicting that it was going to get Hall of Fame rotated, but apparently not, so. And I think mostly one of the reasons that made him dictate not doing that is the fact that this card's in the meta. Spell Ward Jeweler, a 3-mana 3/4, decent stats for a decent zoo body, that has the battle cry, your hero can't be the target by spells or hero powers until your next turn. So this is a card that's obviously supposed to be a good counter against the Malygos combo decks. For people who haven't played Hearthstone and just got onto this video for some random reason, the Malygos combo decks are essentially, Malygos is a 9 mana 4/12 in the meta that has spell damage +5, and the basic combo that people try to go off is get Malygos on the battlefield, play a bunch of burn spells that target the hero, and essentially deal a lot of damage. So this actually, in a sense, kind of helps counter it, sort of. I think the one thing that it's a good counter against mage targeting spells, which is nice. However, one thing to keep in mind, the main core cards for, like, say, the main core deck that does the Malgos combo is Priest. And the thing to keep in mind is that Mind Blast that we're all kind of annoyed of, it doesn't technically target the hero. So, technically speaking, this card, maybe it does counteract it. I don't think it does. So we still will have to deal with the wrath of the Malagos combo, at least in Priest. But it does help counter it in Mage, which is going to be pretty relevant once we reveal one of their legendaries that got revealed today. But for now, I'll just say this is a good card, and if the meta dictates the use of this card, it will see card. I like seeing these tech cards in play, and the fact that this expansion provides it is very nice. Speaking of that Mage Legendary, that I think is the reason why that card exists, the previous one, Caligos. A 10 mana 4/12 dragon. Your first spell each turn costs 0 mana. And the battle cry is discover a spell. So, even if you don't have a spell in hand, you play this minion, and you can discover a spell for free that you can cast for free without a sweat. Okay, this card scares me for a few little reasons. One of the core combos that I've thought about, this is actually a really, really good complement to make Malagos combo deck for Mage possible again. And the main reason why is because with Caligos, sure, the first spell is free, and okay, you play it, you hopefully it doesn't get removed. And if it doesn't get removed, then you could just play Malagos on the following turn and Pyroblast for 15 damage. Just to rewind a little bit, this card now doesn't look so bad. This card is... This is a great Mage Legendary. Though, there is the cost that for a 10 mana 4/12 is... But the factor is, it's a 4/12 with a very significant on the battlefield presence effect that could be very good in some Mage control archetypes, especially those that are combo-centric. And the fact that you do discover a spell from it is very nice, especially if the Mage spells that we get in the set are powerful, including the ones that we have currently in the standard that are not being rotated out. So, keep your eye on this card. I'm not going to rate it just yet, because I still have to think on it, but I do think my first impressions is, the card's good. Next up is a card that I thought was bad until somebody kind of talked to me about it, which was Chef Nomi, a 7 mana 6/6 that has a battle cry. If your deck is empty, summon 6/6/6 Greasefire Elementals. So, you have an empty board, you have an empty deck, you play this, and your board is filled with 6/6s along with Chef Nomi. Now, I thought originally this card was cute, but I thought the possibility that making your deck empty was going to be a lot tricky, and having finishers like Chef Nomi being one is just kind of a weird finisher. Then a friend of mine pointed out that Myra's Unstable Element was a card. Yeah, with Myra Unstable Element being in the meta, this card might actually see some play. You can actually use Myra's Unstable Element, empty your deck out, and then play Chef Nomi. If that doesn't work, like somebody has like, your opponent has like a board wipe or something, then you can just refill your deck with like Academic Espionage. Like, rogues have a lot of ways to refill their deck if necessary. So this is actually a really, really cute card for that type of deck archetype. Also, maybe it'll be beneficial in Warlock in the deck archetypes that are like, I don't know, the one that uses, if we ever see a deck that uses that 8 mana Rastikon's Rumble spell to destroy half of each player's deck. Who knows, maybe this is just a secret finisher. It's an interesting card. I think besides the Myra Unstable deck, I don't see any other deck archetypes that will play with it. But it's still a fun legendary, nevertheless. It'll be fun to see if somebody can crack it and actually make it into a competitive deck archetype. Next up! Well, if we need more fuel for the Treant deck, here's a good one. It is the Forest Aid. 8 mana, summon 5 2/2 Treants, and it has Twin Spell. This is one of the mechanics where one of the themes of the set is that, obviously, if villains are attacking, heroes have to defend. And Dahlon is actually having its defenders to help defend against the rise of the pretty much the Rise of the Shadows, the evil villain team and such. And their mechanic is Twin Spell. Twin Spell, basically the way to think of Twin Spell, it's 2 cards in 1. What Twin Spell does is you essentially get the first spell cast, like you cast the first spell, and then once you cast it, a copy of it's going to be in your hand that's the same spell, except it doesn't have the Twin Spell mechanic on it. So you can cast this twice, essentially. This reminds me very much of, to put it in Magic the Gathering terminology, since that's another game I play on the side, this reminds me in some way kind of Kicker, which is actually kind of cool. It's kind of a card that is 2 for 1 that you can put in your deck, and the fact that you can cast it twice is nice. So that mechanic in itself is pretty cool. Now, the Forest Aid in itself, it's an interesting card. It is one of those that it is another fuel for the Treant archetype, which is one that they've been trying to introduce to us since the Witchwood expansion, and this is actually a nice spell for that deck. I mean, maybe if your early game Treants doesn't work, then you can just use the Force Aid, some of them, and then there's even cards to help us make our Treants into 5/5s and such. So just the fact that you can use this as a late game, hey, I need to build my board presence so I can finish with a Savage Roar next turn, that's something to consider. And just the versatility of it being 2 spells within 1 card is something not to underestimate. Overall, I think it is a fine card, but let's get on, shall we? Next up, Hagava's Scheme. 5 mana for deal 1 damage to all minions. Okay, if you just only read that part of the card, you would be tilting your head sideways and being like, why would I spend 5 mana for Whirlwind? Well, the catch is this is actually a new mechanic called Schemes. Now, what Schemes are, essentially, they're cards that, initially when they start out, they're not that great, but if you keep them in your hand, they get upgraded into more powerful cards. Which in this case, Hagava's Scheme, sure, it only deals 1 damage to all minions, but if you keep it in your hand, then for a turn, then it will deal 2 damage, then 3 damage, and vice versa, vice versa. I think this card is subtly a really, really good card. It's a card that is kind of one of those cool, you can actually keep it in your starting hand, which is actually very cool. And then actually make it where on turn 5, deal 5 damage to all minions. That's very powerful. Now the question is whether players would want to actually keep this card in their starting hand. That's going to be the interesting debate. It's just kind of interesting to have these cards that you invest by having them within your hand, so it's going to dictate starting of hand kind of shenanigans, which is actually kind of very cool to see. I'm curious to see how this mechanic moves on with the other villains and their schemes and how their mechanics affect each other. I'm very curious about that. Also, keep in mind, this can also be affected by spell damage, like I'm jokingly saying Malgos at the moment, but even a popular card that didn't see much play due to the factor that Prince Keliseth was a card in our current expansion, which are rotating out, may I remind you, is Blood Mage Faunos, which does give you just 1 additional spell damage. So let's say this stays in your hand, you have it at the point where it deals 4 damage, then on turn 7, you could just play Blood Mage Faunos, play Hagava's Scheme, deal a lot of whatever the damage at the moment is plus 1, and draw a card out of it. That's decent. I think this card will see a lot of play. It's definitely the board wipe that Shaman will need since they are going to miss Volcano once it rotates out. But I think this will fill the ticket just fine. Would it be a perfect fill? No, but I think it'll be just fine. Next up, the Evil Miscreant. A 3 mana 1/5 that has a combo to add 2 random lackeys to your hand. Now this one I can't show off since I'm using the Hearthstone webpage to do this, but what lackeys are is they are in general... I might actually just show lackeys real quick. Hang on one moment. Let's see if they actually have them in the cards. No, they don't. Okay, one moment. So... Sorry, this is totally, like I said, this video is kind of more bloggish right off the bat. So if you don't mind the random Imagine Anthem as a 16-bit game video over there... there we go. So what are lackeys? Lackeys are essentially 1-cost minions that essentially will stay 1/1s, but they have a very useful battlecry effect. So for example, the Ethereal Lackey, 1 mana, battlecry, discover a spell. 1 mana, Faceless Lackey. Battlecry, summon a random 2-cost minion. Goblin Lackey, 1 mana, give a friendly minion +1 attack and rush. Kobold Lackey, 1 mana 1/1, deal 2 damage. 1 mana Witch Lackey. Battlecry, transform a friendly minion into one that costs 1 more. Okay, so now that we got that contents out of the way, let's go back to Evil Miscreant. Do I think this is a good card? Yes, quite a lot. The factor is, a free mana 1/5 is decent in the stats, and the fact that you're getting kind of very decent 1 mana activated battle cries are very good. Also, keep in mind, this kind of has the effect that you would say the elemental 1 mana 1. I always forget the name of this one. Not Pyros, I always forget it. It's the 1 mana 1/2 that when it summons, when you play it, the battle cry is summon another 1/2 in your hand. I can't believe I'm getting it. I use that card constantly in my rogue deck. But anyway, I kind of am getting the same vibes with that, with this card, with its combo, the factor with the Lackey mechanic in general. The factor that you get those 1-cost battle cries and the 1/1s are nifty, but they also can be useful as combo activators in themselves, which is really, really cool. I'm also curious to see which cards will have the Lackey generating mechanics, because if we get any neutral ones or any ones in Shaman, I could see Shadowwalk Shaman being very, very chaotic. Also, keep in mind, Spirit of the Shark is in the meta, which will make it that combo and battle cries will activate twice. Yeah, I think this is subtly one of my favorite comments of the set. I think it's going to be a lot chaotic for Rogue, and this is what my Battle Sharks Rogue deck really needed, so thank you, Blizzard. I appreciate this card. Yee. Next up, a really good pre-spell that actually got revealed. One of the members of it is, I think they give her a name. We usually call it the Fortune Teller, but it's like Mademoiselle, I think it is. I could be wrong. Ugh, I feel like a... Hang on, back again to this. I think they actually have it. Mademoiselle, yes, okay. Clarification, just had to get that clarification out of the way. So the spell that Mademoiselle has in Priest is Forbidden Words, which is very familiar to Whisper of the Old Guard mechanics. For those who haven't played during that expansion, Whisper of the Old Gods had a mechanic called the Forbidden mechanic, which had spells that essentially were 0 mana spells that you could spend all your mana once you cast them, and essentially the effect of the spell will be affected with how much mana has been invested in the spell. In this case, for Forbidden Words, it is spend all your mana, and then destroy a minion with that much attack or less. So, essentially, if you had 4 mana crystals left, you can cast a spell, it spends 4 of your mana, and can destroy a minion with 4 attack or less. Okay, you want to know which card is going to be a competitive card that's going to see play in Priest? Dupe. Well, dupe. Now, the fact that you have to spend all your mana to destroy one specific minion is a little costly, but for the most part, depending on various circumstances, this is unconditional removal. This can remove some of the more annoying 4-attack minions in the meta. This can also just be used early game to remove a very annoying threat, but this can also be used late game to destroy, say, a Ragnaros, which we have that thanks to Geneli and such, or even destroy a very, very problematic late game minion. This card will see competitive play. I know I'm not doing my reviews, but I think this is easily a 4-star card if I do 5-star reviews, but I'm not doing the star review thing. But this is a good card. It's going to see competitive play. It's just a really, really good card. And that's all the cards they revealed so far. Overall, I'm just really excited. I can't wait to start with the card reviews and actually just give my kind of like review ratings for these cards and the cards that are upcoming up. Overall, though, that's kind of like my first thoughts that we've seen so far with the expansion with some of the cards. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed the videos upcoming. This is LevDev, signing out.